What if I told you that the pain you carry is not your prison, but your power? What if you could wake up tomorrow and nothing, no betrayal, no loss, no failure, could ever hurt you again? Imagine the strength, the freedom, and the unstoppable force you would become. Pain is not permanent, but growth can be. Pain is a visitor, a teacher, a messenger that enters your life for a moment or for a season, but it is never meant to be your permanent address. Yet so many people make the mistake of pitching their tent inside pain, of allowing it to define who they are, of rehearsing it until it becomes part of their identity. They wear their wounds like name tags, introducing themselves to the world through what they have suffered instead of who they have become. But the truth is, pain always has an expiration date. It may linger, it may echo, but it does not last forever. What lasts is the lesson, the strength, the resilience you develop from it. That is the growth that outlives the pain. Growth is the treasure you can carry for a lifetime, a reward no circumstance can steal once you embrace it fully. Think back to the hardest moments of your life, the times you thought you could never get through, the nights where you cried yourself to sleep, the mornings where getting out of bed felt impossible, the betrayals that cut so deeply you thought you'd never heal, the failures that made you feel like life was finished. At that moment, the pain felt eternal, like it would never end, like it would define the rest of your journey. But look at you now. You are not still in that exact moment of suffering. Time moved, life moved, and so did you. What remains is not the intensity of the pain, but the wisdom you gathered from enduring it. The fact that you survived proves that pain did not destroy you, it shaped you. The pain left, but the growth stayed. The problem is, most people confuse pain with permanence. They experience a heartbreak and convince themselves they will never love again. They experience rejection and convince themselves they are unworthy forever. They experience failure and convince themselves they will never rise. But what they fail to realize is that pain is meant to be a process, not a prison. It is meant to pass through, not stay forever. Growth, however, is the byproduct of pain, and unlike pain, it is not fleeting. Growth can last a lifetime. Growth can carry you into the future stronger than you were in the past. Growth is not temporary, because once you have been stretched by adversity, you never shrink back to who you were before it. When you start looking at life through this lens, pain becomes less of an enemy and more of a teacher. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is this here to teach me?" Every painful situation carries a seed of growth inside it, but only if you are willing to look beyond the suffering and extract the lesson. That growth could be in patience, in resilience, in wisdom, in self-awareness, in discipline, in compassion for others, or in the ability to endure. Without pain, most people would never grow because comfort rarely demands change. It is pain that stretches you beyond your limits, pain that forces you to confront your weaknesses, pain that exposes what you need to strengthen. And while the pain eventually leaves, the growth you acquire remains part of who you are. This is why people who have been through the deepest struggles often have the greatest strength. The person who lost everything and rebuilt from the ground up has a different level of determination than someone who never faced loss. The person who was rejected 100 times before success carries a perseverance that comfort could never teach. The person who faced heartbreak and still chose to love again has a depth of courage that only pain could shape. Pain is temporary, but the resilience, wisdom, and character built through it is permanent. Growth does not disappear. It becomes part of your DNA. The challenge is to shift your focus from the temporary sting of pain to the everlasting gift of growth. Too often, people hold on to the memory of their pain instead of holding on to the power of their growth. They replay the betrayal instead of replaying the resilience it awakened in them. They rehearse the words that hurt them instead of rehearsing the strength they discovered through healing. They live in yesterday's suffering instead of living in today's lessons. If you keep feeding pain, it will feel permanent. But if you focus on growth, you will begin to see that pain was never the final chapter. It was only the setup for transformation. You must decide whether to treat pain as your master or as your mentor, When you see it as a master, you allow it to control you, to define your decisions, to determine how far you go. But when you see it as a mentor, you begin to ask questions. You begin to extract meaning. You begin to use it as fuel instead of chains. Masters imprison you. Mentors empower you. Pain has no power to enslave you unless you give it authority. The moment you decide that pain is only a lesson in disguise, you step into the place where growth becomes permanent. Life is full of seasons, and every season brings its own share of pain. You may lose someone you love. You may fail at something important. You may experience setbacks that test your faith. But no matter what form it comes in, the principle remains the same. The pain will not last forever, but the growth you take from it can serve you forever. Every scar tells a story of healing. Every tear that dried became evidence of your endurance. Every failure that once embarrassed you eventually taught you lessons that success never could. The secret is to never waste your pain. If you are going to cry, let those tears water the soil of growth. If you are going to hurt, let that hurt build strength within you. If you are going to fall, let the fall teach you how to rise stronger. Detach from the opinions of others, because as long as you remain enslaved to what people think about you, you will never live the life that belongs to you. From the time we are children, we are conditioned to seek approval, to want the applause, to crave the validation that tells us we are enough. We learn early that a smile, a pat on the back, a word of praise makes us feel accepted. And so we grow into adults constantly chasing the approval of others, terrified of their criticism, paralyzed by their disapproval. But the truth is, no one's opinion has the power to define your worth unless you give it permission. Opinions are just perspectives shaped by someone else's fears, someone else's experiences, someone else's limitations. If you allow those opinions to govern your choices, you surrender the steering wheel of your life to people who are not even driving in the same direction as you. Think about how much of your life is quietly dictated by what you imagine other people will say. How many dreams have you buried because you feared they would laugh? How many opportunities have you passed up because you were worried about criticism? How many times have you remained silent when your heart was screaming to speak, all because you didn't want someone to misunderstand you? Living in the prison of people's opinions is one of the most suffocating forms of captivity, because you cannot please everyone no matter how hard you try. Today they may applaud you. Tomorrow the same people may criticize you. And if your identity rises and falls with their voices, you will spend your entire life like a puppet whose strings are controlled by the crowd. Detaching from the opinions of others does not mean you disrespect them or that you live recklessly without wisdom. It means you no longer surrender your peace, your decisions, or your destiny to the shifting moods of people. The moment you understand that opinions are not facts, you begin to reclaim your freedom. One person's opinion may call you a failure while another calls you brilliant. One may say you are unworthy while another says you inspire them. Which one is the truth? Neither, because opinions are reflections of the observer, not the reality of the observed. If you internalize every word people speak over you, you will never know your own voice. To detach is to separate who you are from what they think, to stand firmly rooted in your own identity, regardless of whether the crowd cheers or boos. A tree does not stop growing because the wind blows against it. In fact, resistance often strengthens its roots. In the same way, criticism should not paralyze you. It should deepen your confidence in who you truly are. When you live attached to the opinions of others, you become addicted to approval. You measure your worth by likes, by compliments, by applause. But approval is like a drug. Temporary, fleeting, never enough. The more you chase it, the more empty you feel, because deep down you know that if people's approval built you, their rejection can destroy you. Detachment liberates you from this cycle. It allows you to stand in the storm of criticism and remain steady. It allows you to take risks that others are too afraid to take. It allows you to build a life based on your own convictions rather than on the fragile foundation of external validation. True freedom comes when you no longer crave their approval and you no longer fear their rejection. Consider the greatest innovators, leaders, and visionaries in history. Almost all of them were criticized, doubted, and ridiculed at some point. If they had lived attached to public opinion, none of their breakthroughs would have existed. The people who dared to create, to disrupt, to speak truth, did so because they had detached themselves from the need for acceptance. They realized that most criticism is a reflection of someone else's fear, not an accurate assessment of their own potential. They realized that what others call impossible is often only a mirror of their own limitations. They chose to walk their path regardless of the noise. Detachment gave them clarity, and clarity gave them courage. You must also realize that many people's opinions about you are temporary, just like their moods. A person can admire you today and despise you tomorrow, not because you changed, but because their perspective shifted. If you are building your life based on such unstable foundations, you will constantly feel tossed around like a leaf in the wind. Detachment means your foundation is internal, not external. It means your sense of worth is rooted in your own values, your own standards, your own truth. When you detach, you are no longer manipulated by flattery or crushed by criticism. Both become just noise in the background while you keep moving forward. Detachment does not mean arrogance. It does not mean you close your ears to wisdom or ignore constructive feedback. Wisdom is always open to learning, but wisdom is also discerning enough to know the difference between advice and projection. When someone gives you feedback that aligns with your growth, you take it. When someone criticizes you from their own bitterness, you release it. Detachment is the filter that allows you to listen without being controlled, to hear without being hijacked. It is the maturity to know that people are entitled to their opinions, but you are not obligated to live by them. The more you detach from the opinions of others, the more peace you experience, because you are no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations. You are no longer trying to live up to their definitions of success, beauty, or worth. You are free to define yourself on your own terms, and that freedom is priceless. It allows you to chase dreams that others cannot see, to walk paths others are too afraid to walk, to believe in yourself even when no one else does. Detachment gives you the space to live authentically, and authenticity is where true fulfillment is found. Emotional armor is built, not born, because no one enters this world already equipped with unshakable resilience, unbreakable confidence, or the ability to walk through storms untouched. We arrive fragile, sensitive, easily hurt by words, rejection, or disappointment. Yet life demands that we strengthen ourselves, that we grow tougher skin, that we create a layer of defense that allows us to keep moving forward even when arrows are thrown our way. Too often people believe that some are simply born strong, that certain individuals have a natural immunity to pain or criticism, but that is an illusion. Strength is forged, not inherited. Emotional armor is the product of scars, lessons, challenges, and choices. Every disappointment you overcome, every rejection you rise from, every heartbreak you endure is like a layer added to your armor. Bit by bit, battle by battle, you build the resilience that allows you to walk through life unshaken by what once would have destroyed you. Consider how easily children are wounded by small things. A harsh word can ruin their day. Being left out of a game can feel like the end of the world. A simple mistake can fill them with shame. As we grow, life does not get easier, but we learn to carry it differently. What once hurt deeply begins to lose its sting because we develop coping mechanisms. We learn perspective. We discover that life goes on even after rejection, that failure is not fatal, that disappointment is not the end. This learning is not accidental. It is the slow construction of armor. Every time you face what you fear and survive it, a piece of armor is added. Every time you get knocked down but rise again, the armor grows stronger. Emotional strength is never instant. It is earned through the willingness to endure and the refusal to quit. The process of building emotional armor is not about becoming cold, numb, or disconnected. True strength is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of feeling. To build armor is not to stop caring, but to stop collapsing when things don't go your way. It is to still feel the sting of pain, but not allow it to paralyze you. It is to hear criticism, but not let it define you. It is to face heartbreak and still keep your heart open. Many confuse toughness with shutting down, but shutting down is not strength, it is avoidance. Real emotional armor allows you to stay open, stay kind, stay loving, and still be unbreakable in the face of adversity. Every challenge in life is secretly training you. Every betrayal is teaching you who to trust. Every rejection is strengthening your independence. Every setback is sharpening your determination. People who seem unshakable are not that way because life spared them hardship, but because hardship trained them. They carry scars, but instead of letting those scars make them bitter, they let them make them stronger. This is why you cannot compare your journey to someone else's. You may see their armor, but not the battles that built it. You may envy their confidence, but not realize it was born from countless rejections. You may admire their peace, but not see the storms they endured to achieve it. Emotional armor is always built in the unseen struggles that others rarely witness. The danger is when people refuse to build armor and instead keep reliving pain without learning from it. They face betrayal and allow it to make them cynical rather than wise. They face failure and allow it to make them fearful rather than determined. They face criticism and allow it to silence them rather than sharpen their resolve. Pain by itself does not build armor. Response to pain does. If you let adversity teach you, if you choose to rise instead of retreat, if you look for lessons instead of excuses, you will build armor. But if you resist the lessons, pain will only repeat itself until you decide to learn. Life is relentless in this way. It will keep sending the same tests until you extract the strength you are meant to gain. Armor is not built in comfort, it is built in conflict. Easy days do not forge warriors, struggles do. You may wish for a life without hardship, but such a life would leave you fragile, easily broken, unable to withstand even the smallest storm. It is resistance that builds resilience, just as muscles only grow under pressure. Emotional armor is no different. You cannot develop toughness if you are never tested. You cannot build courage if you are never afraid. You cannot cultivate patience if you are never delayed. Every struggle is shaping your armor in ways you may not see now, but later you will realize that without those battles, you would not have the strength you now carry. It is also important to recognize that armor must be maintained. Just as physical strength requires continuous training, emotional armor requires continuous growth. If you stop challenging yourself, if you avoid every risk, if you retreat into comfort, your armor weakens. Life will always test you, and if you want to remain unshakable, you must continue to stretch yourself, continue to step into uncomfortable places, continue to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. Strength is not something you achieve once and then keep forever. It is something you must keep building daily. In the end, emotional armor is not about protecting yourself from life, but about equipping yourself to fully live it. Without it, you hide, you shrink, you play small to avoid pain. With it, you stand tall, you pursue dreams despite fear, you love boldly even after heartbreak. You speak truth even when criticized. You rise again every time you fall. And though the battles of life will continue to come, the armor you have built ensures that you face them not as a victim, but as a warrior. Redefine your identity beyond hurt, because you are not the pain you went through. You are not the betrayal you experienced. You are not the failure that knocked you down. And you are not the mistake that still haunts you. Too many people allow their wounds to become their name, their scars to become their label, and their past to become the prison of their present. They say, "I am broken, I am unworthy, I am unwanted," not realizing those words are chains that keep them bound to experiences that were only meant to teach them, not define them. Hurt may be part of your story, but it is not your entire identity. You are more than the sum of your struggles. When you carry hurt as your identity, you live stuck in cycles of self-doubt and fear. But when you redefine yourself beyond hurt, you step into a new reality where your past no longer limits your future. Think of how many people remain trapped because they have made pain their permanent description. A person goes through heartbreak, and for years they call themselves unlovable. Another person fails in business, and they call themselves a failure. Someone grows up in poverty, and they label themselves a victim of circumstance. These words become the lenses through which they see the world. And as long as they see themselves through the lens of hurt, everything they do will be limited by that belief. Redefining your identity is about stripping off the old labels and choosing to see yourself as more than the wounds you carry. It is about realizing that you are not your scars. You are the strength that healed beneath them. Pain has a way of trying to convince you that it is permanent. It whispers that you will never recover, that you will always be broken, that life will never look different. But time proves otherwise. Pain passes, wounds heal, scars remain. But scars are not signs of weakness. They are proof of survival. To redefine your identity beyond hurt is to take the very scars that once embarrassed you and let them become symbols of resilience. It is to say, this happened to me, but it did not end me. This broke me, but it also built me. This tried to define me, but I chose a new definition. Your identity is not determined by what happened to you. It is determined by what you decide to do with what happened. There comes a point when you must stop rehearsing the old story of your pain and begin rewriting the new story of your power. Every time you retell the story of your hurt without highlighting the growth, you reinforce the belief that you are still the same broken person. But when you begin to shift your words, you shift your identity. Instead of saying, I am broken because I was betrayed, you begin to say, I am wise because I know the value of trust. Instead of saying, I am a failure because I fell short, you say, I am resilient because I rise after every fall. This redefinition is not about denying that hurt happened. It is about refusing to let hurt have the final say about who you are. The world will try to brand you based on your past. People will remember your mistakes long after you've grown from them. They will whisper about the old version of you even when you've outgrown that chapter. But you must understand that the opinions of others do not define your identity, and neither does your pain. You are not required to remain the character that others remember from your lowest moments. You have the power to reinvent, to redefine, to rise. When you embrace this truth, you no longer feel trapped by who you used to be. You allow yourself to become who you were always meant to be. Redefining your identity beyond hurt also means detaching your worth from your wounds. Many people believe they are less valuable because of what they went through. They think being abandoned makes them unworthy of love, or that failing makes them unworthy of success, or that being hurt makes them less than others. But the truth is, your worth has never changed. No amount of hurt can reduce the value of who you are. A diamond dropped in the mud does not lose its value. It simply needs to be cleaned. In the same way, your identity remains priceless regardless of the dirt life has tried to throw on you. The most powerful part of redefining your identity is that you get to choose who you become. Hurt might have shaped your past, but you decide how it shapes your future. You can decide that the heartbreak that once made you bitter will now make you compassionate. You can decide that the failure that once made you insecure will now make you relentless. You can decide that the rejection that once made you hide will now make you fearless. Redefinition is a choice, and the moment you choose to see yourself beyond hurt, you unlock the freedom to live a life not chained to what was, but guided by what can be. Your life is bigger than the worst thing that happened to you. Your story is greater than your lowest chapter. Your identity is deeper than your wounds. To redefine yourself beyond hurt is to step into the fullness of who you truly are, without apology, without shame, without limitation. It is the act of rising every morning and saying, I am not my past. I am not my pain. I am not my scars. I am strength. I am resilience. I am becoming more every single day. Choose power over pity because pity is seductive but powerless, while power is demanding but transformative. When life hurts you, when you fail, when you are rejected, when you feel abandoned, pity shows up first. It whispers, stay here, stay broken, stay sad, stay the victim. Pity makes you feel comforted in your weakness, like a warm blanket on a cold night, but it does not heal you. It does not elevate you. It does not move you forward. It only keeps you in the same place, rehearsing the same story, carrying the same wounds. Power, on the other hand, asks more of you. It demands that you rise when you don't feel like it, that you take responsibility when excuses are easier, that you look at the same pain that makes others crumble and turn it into fuel. Choosing power over pity is not denying your hurt. It is deciding that your hurt will not define your destiny. Pity can feel good in the moment because it attracts sympathy. When you speak as the victim, people will gather around you, comfort you, and tell you how unfair life has been. But once the comfort ends, nothing changes. You are still in the same position, still carrying the same pain, still living under the same limitations. Pity keeps you dependent on others to feel seen, while power forces you to see yourself. Power may not attract applause in the moment, because others may not understand your decision to rise, but power produces transformation. Power takes you from where you are to where you are capable of going. The energy you use to tell the story of why life is unfair could be the same energy you use to build the story of how you overcame it. When you choose pity, you hand over your strength to circumstances. You say, I cannot because life was unfair. I cannot because they hurt me. I cannot because I failed before. But when you choose power, you reclaim ownership. You say, yes, I was hurt, but I will heal. Yes, I failed, but I will learn. Yes, I was rejected, but I will try again. Power is about what you choose to do now, not what was done to you then. Pity keeps you stuck in the past. Power moves you into the future. Every single person who has achieved greatness chose power over pity. They could have spent years telling the story of how unfair life was, but instead they used the pain as fuel, the obstacles as stepping stones, the rejection as redirection. Choosing power is not easy because it requires you to face the truth. It requires you to admit that even though you were not responsible for what hurt you, you are responsible for what you do now. That responsibility feels heavy at first, but it is the very thing that sets you free. When you stay in pity, you wait for someone else to rescue you. When you choose power, you realize no rescue is coming. You must rescue yourself. And in that realization, you discover just how strong you really are. Power forces you to dig deeper, to find resources within yourself that pity will never allow you to see. There are people who spend decades in pity, reliving the same hurt over and over. They build their identity around being the victim. They tell the same story so many times that it becomes their prison. But there are others who have gone through the same level of pain, maybe even worse, and they chose power. They rose above what could have destroyed them. They turned their story into a source of inspiration. They built a life so strong that the pain became a chapter, not the whole book. The only difference between these two kinds of people is not the pain they went through, but the choice they made afterward, pity or power. Power is also contagious. When you choose power, you inspire others. Your decision to rise gives permission for others to rise. People may not listen when you complain about how unfair life has been, but they will be moved when they see how you turned pain into strength. Pity isolates, power multiplies. Pity attracts people who will join you in staying stuck, but power attracts people who will walk with you toward growth. When you choose power, you change not only your life, but also the lives of those who witness your resilience. Choosing power means asking different questions. Pity asks, why me? Power asks, what now? Pity asks, who will save me? Power asks, how will I save myself? Pity asks, what did I lose? Power asks, what can I build? These questions change everything because your mind always finds answers to the questions you ask. If you ask questions rooted in pity, your answers will keep you small. If you ask questions rooted in power, your answers will expand your capacity. Understand this. Pity feels safe, but it keeps you weak. Power feels risky, but it makes you strong. Pity keeps you looking back, but power keeps you moving forward. Pity leaves you dependent, but power makes you independent. Every time you face pain, you stand at a crossroads to stay where you are and repeat the story of pity, or to rise, step into power, and write a new chapter. The choice is always yours. Train your mind like a warrior because the battles you face in life are not only external, but deeply internal. Every day you wake up, your thoughts are the first opponents you encounter. They tell you what you can and cannot do. They remind you of your failures. They whisper fears. They magnify doubts, and they project limitations. If your mind is undisciplined, it will run wild and sabotage your potential before the world ever has a chance to test you. But if you train your mind like a warrior, you create a mental fortress, a battlefield where discipline, focus, and resilience become your greatest weapons. A warrior does not enter battle unprepared, and you cannot enter life without training your mind to withstand the storms, the struggles, and the pressures that will inevitably come. A warrior understands that preparation is everything. They do not wait until the battle begins to sharpen their sword or strengthen their armor. They train daily so that when the moment of conflict arrives, they are ready. The same principle applies to your mind. You cannot wait until adversity shows up to begin strengthening your thoughts. You cannot wait until life breaks you down to start building resilience. Training your mind means practicing discipline every day, feeding it with truth, surrounding it with positivity, challenging it with new thoughts, and protecting it from distractions that weaken it. Just as muscles grow through resistance, your mind grows through the challenges you willingly put it through. Every time you push yourself to focus when you want to give up, every time you choose gratitude when negativity tries to consume you, every time you control your emotions instead of being controlled by them, you are training like a warrior. Warriors know that the greatest battles are won long before the first strike is made. Victory is secured in the hours of unseen preparation, in the discipline of repetition, in the quiet moments where no one is watching. When you train your mind, you are building habits that will protect you in moments of crisis. For example, if you practice thinking with clarity in times of peace, you will not crumble in times of chaos. If you practice self-control in small situations, you will have the strength to stand firm in bigger ones. Warriors rehearse their movements until they become instinct, and in the same way, you must rehearse powerful thinking until it becomes your automatic response. Instead of panic, you choose calm. Instead of fear, you choose courage. Instead of doubt, you choose determination. A warrior's mind is also disciplined in what it consumes. No fighter feeds on poison and expects to win in battle. Yet many people constantly feed their minds with negativity, gossip, fear-driven news, and toxic environments, then wonder why they feel weak when adversity strikes. Training your mind like a warrior requires you to be intentional about what enters your mental space. You choose to read words that inspire, listen to voices that empower, and surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow. You eliminate what weakens you because you know that what you consume shapes your mental strength. A weak diet produces a weak body, and a weak mental diet produces a fragile mind. A warrior cannot afford fragility. They need fortitude. Another key aspect of training your mind like a warrior is learning to endure discomfort. Comfort is the enemy of growth, and warriors know that strength is built in the heat of challenge. If you always give in to comfort, you will never be strong enough to face real battles. Training your mind means deliberately pushing yourself beyond what is easy. It means waking up early when you want to sleep in, working on your goals when you feel tired, speaking courage when you feel fear, and choosing discipline when distraction tempts you. These small acts of mental resistance build toughness. Over time, your mind learns that it is stronger than your feelings, stronger than your doubts, stronger than the pressure. A true warrior's mind is also calm under pressure. Chaos may surround them, but inside they remain steady. This steadiness is not natural, it is trained. You must practice stillness, practice focus, practice composure until it becomes your instinct. When people around you panic, you will be the one who thinks clearly. When circumstances shake others, you will be the one who stands firm. The warrior mindset is not about being fearless. It is about controlling your fear so that it does not control you. It is about using fear as fuel instead of letting it become a cage. The warrior's training also requires persistence. Building a strong mind is not something you do once. It is something you do daily. Just as a sword must be sharpened again and again, your mind must be trained consistently. One day of discipline is not enough. One moment of focus is not enough. Training like a warrior means showing up every single day, whether you feel like it or not. It means you treat your mind as the most valuable weapon you own, because in truth, it is. Everything you achieve in life begins in your mind first. If you can win in your mind, you can win in your life. When you begin to train your mind like a warrior, you stop being a victim of your own thoughts. You no longer allow worry, doubt, or negativity to dictate your choices. Instead, you master your thoughts, direct your energy, and control your focus. This kind of mastery does not make life easier, but it makes you stronger. It gives you the ability to walk through storms with peace, to face rejection with resilience, to handle setbacks with strategy, and to rise from failure with fire still burning in your heart. A warrior trains not because the battle is easy, but because they know the battle is inevitable. And when the mind is trained, no battle can defeat you. Freedom comes from unshakable inner peace, because real freedom is not found in possessions, achievements, or even external circumstances. It is found in the state of your mind and the condition of your heart. Too often people confuse freedom with the absence of problems, but life will never be without problems. No matter how much you earn, no matter how high you climb, no matter how much you try to control, storms will come, challenges will rise, and uncertainty will always exist. If your peace depends on everything outside of you being calm, then you are not free. You are a prisoner to conditions you cannot control. True freedom is when nothing outside of you has the power to disturb the inside of you, when no criticism shakes your confidence, when no setback steals your joy, when no rejection destroys your worth, and when no loss takes away your will to keep going. That freedom only comes from cultivating an inner peace so unshakable that no circumstance can touch it. People spend their entire lives chasing external freedom. They think if they make enough money, they will be free. They think if they achieve enough recognition, they will be free. They think if everyone loves them, they will be free. But how many wealthy people are still restless? How many successful people are still miserable? How many admired people are still insecure? External freedom without inner peace is an illusion. You can own everything and still feel enslaved to fear. You can be applauded by the world and still be tormented by doubt. You can control empires and still be ruled by your own anxiety. The prison of the mind is far more suffocating than the prison of walls. True liberation happens when you no longer need circumstances to line up perfectly in order for you to be at peace. Inner peace is unshakable when it is rooted in self-mastery. Most people think peace comes from avoiding stress, but real peace comes from building strength. It is not about running from challenges, but about facing them with calmness. It is about training your mind to remain steady, no matter how loud the noise becomes. Imagine being in the middle of a storm while inside you are still. That is unshakable inner peace. It is not the absence of storms, it is the mastery of your emotions in the middle of them. It is knowing that life can change in an instant, but your anchor remains within you. It is knowing that pain can visit, but not control you, that failure can arrive, but not define you, that rejection can sting, but not silence you. The reason inner peace creates freedom is because most people live trapped by reaction. They react to every insult, every failure, every difficulty. When life moves, their emotions swing like a pendulum, up when things go well, down when things fall apart. They are slaves to circumstance. But when you develop unshakable peace, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop being controlled by external noise and start moving from internal clarity. Freedom is not in controlling everything, but in controlling yourself. It is in mastering your responses, in choosing calm instead of panic, in choosing gratitude instead of bitterness, in choosing perspective instead of despair. Unshakable peace also requires detachment from things you cannot control. Many people lose their peace because they try to micromanage life, because they think they can prevent every setback or avoid every disappointment. But control is an illusion, and the more you chase it, the more enslaved you become. Freedom comes when you release the need to control everything and instead focus on mastering what you can. your attitude, your thoughts, your discipline, your reactions. When you stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable, you free your mind from constant worry. Worry is the thief of peace, and the cure for worry is acceptance. Acceptance is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is knowing when to let go and when to fight. To cultivate inner peace, you must also guard your environment. Just as a warrior protects the gates of a city, you must protect the gates of your mind. You cannot allow toxic voices, constant negativity, or endless distraction to flood your spirit and expect to remain calm. Inner peace is built through intentional practices: silence, reflection, gratitude, focus. The world will always shout, but you must create spaces where you can hear your own voice. The stronger your inner world, the less the outer world can disturb you. People who live with unshakable peace are not those who never face battles. They are those who prepare daily by strengthening their inner foundation. Another truth about peace is that it must be practiced. Just like physical strength requires training, inner peace requires discipline. You must practice patience when things delay. You must practice calm when things fall apart. You must practice stillness when everything is noisy. The more you practice, the stronger the habit becomes, until one day peace is not something you fight for. It is something you carry naturally. And when you carry peace naturally, freedom follows. Because nothing has the power to imprison a person who has mastered themselves. Unshakable peace does not mean you no longer feel. It does not mean you stop caring or become indifferent. It means you feel deeply, but you do not let those feelings overthrow you. It means you care greatly, but you do not allow disappointment to shatter you. It means you still dream boldly, but you are not destroyed if the dream takes longer than expected. Peace is not numbness. It is resilience. It is the ability to stay whole, even when pieces around you are falling apart. That is where freedom is born, because the world no longer dictates your joy, your stability, or your strength.